Last week I taught a message that I got an awful lot of comments on. The people said, this is really good, this is really something we needed. We taught the message, and I'll just look at my title to make sure I get exactly the right title. And what's that? It was a very long title, yes, I know, that's why I want to say. We taught on good habits, how to change your life for the better, one day at a time. And I mentioned that it's the habits that you develop that are going to end up being what determines a lot of times where you go or what's happening. I taught on the habits we form, and how they will determine to the largest extent the position or the place that our lives go. We are the products of the habits that we have formed already. Now, a lot of times we don't like to think about it that way, but it really boils down to most of us are the weight we are because of the habits we have concerning eating. Most of us are in the financial situation we are because of the habits that we have concerning money. And most of us have, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, are going to have to agree and say, we really are the product of our habits, because those are the things we don't think about. We just end up doing without even thinking about it. Then I mentioned that the good news was that we can consciously reform many of our habits. If you're the person that gets to the checkout line and then has to buy every magazine that's listed there on your way out, you can reform that habit. You're going to find out that the 600-year-old person that came back to life is the same one that the other ones talked about. You're going to find out that they didn't ever say it really happened. It could have happened. That the 90-year-old woman gave birth to the same baby on every magazine. And you're not going to have to read them all, or any of them probably, once you've read one. You can redo those habits. Now, we know that people have developed habits, and I'm just using the checkout lines right now. We know that people have developed habits of buying by the way the retailers market that area. Everything near the checkouts is stuff that you're going to pick up without thinking about it. It's all low-cost items. You're not going to have a $600 item standing there at the checkout saying, oh, well, there's something I need. It's called impulse buying, but it's because people have developed habits of buying, and they stand in the checkout line and they look and they go, oh, look at this. Billy Graham may have had I should pick that up. Because it might be Christian. Probably not. If it's for people that have to know that it's written for, it's probably not written for you. But we end up developing these habits. We end up developing things. And you can look at that in everything. And even the way the whole food stores are set up. The good food is all around the outside edge. And the reason they do that is that you're going to end up having to wander around the whole place and get a chance to buy everything. The high-fat sugar stuff, the high-fat stuff, it's all going to be in the center. And you have to learn and see, what is my habit? What have I developed? Which habits am I developing which are not beneficial? And if you find a habit that's not beneficial, you can consciously reform that habit. And say, okay, I'm going to start doing this differently now. I'm not buying. I had a customer of mine a number of years ago, and she was from England, and she had been wanting to go to England for years, and she could never afford it. And she had finally mentioned to one of her friends, she says, I would love to go to England, but go back home, visit every place, but I just can't afford it. And her friend said, well, let me help you. Now, she did not turn out and write out a check for $10,000 so she could go to England, but she says, let's go through your finances and find out what you're doing. She cut out the impulse buying. That's all she did. At home, she made up a grocery list. This is what I'm buying. This is what I'm going to need for groceries. This is what I'm buying. And she stuck to it. Nothing else went in to the cart. Well, there's a strange thought, isn't it? At home, she decided what she was spending. If she was going out, what she was going to eat. She would make those decisions at home and then stick to them. And after 1 year, she had saved up enough that she was able to go back to England. She says, I never knew where all my money was going. Crown Financial, one of the first things they'll teach you is start writing down every penny that you spend. See, we've developed a habit of it doesn't matter. It's only $1, it's only $3, it's only $10, it's only this, it's only that. And we developed the habit, and we spend all this money without ever knowing where it's going. And when we have to write it down, all of a sudden you're going, do I really want to spend $10 on this? But you developed the habit. You've developed the habit of buying the stuff that isn't needed. And once you start, that same concept I've discovered when I do it also works if you're trying to lose weight. Write down everything you're putting in your mouth. And how much. Because when you got to go back and read what you all ate, you're going, oh. And you don't need a dietitian then to come with you and say, you should probably be cutting down on the mashed potatoes. 3 cups of mashed potatoes for one meal might be a little excessive. You don't need the dietitian. You can figure that out for yourself. 3 chocolate bars before lunch might be a bit much. 6 cans of pop might be a bit much. You can figure those things out, but once you write it down, but even that has become a habit, and I see now I'm touching sacred ground now, are we? Figured I'd hit one sooner or later, but you do the same thing, and I've seen it myself. If you have a bowl of candy standing on the cupboard, you got to have one as you go by. If it's not there, you don't need it, but you develop the habit of seeing it and saying, I'm going to have it. So when we start redeveloping the habits, we're going to end up finding that a lot of the things that we found are big problems are really just the result of the habits that we have developed. Now, to go along with that thought, I want to mention an old saying I heard years ago. It says, success is when opportunity meets preparation. Success is when opportunity meets preparation, and developing the correct habits will ensure that the preparation part is complete when the opportunity comes. If you start developing the right habits now, if you start developing the proper spending habits now, then when the money comes in, you're not going to have to say, what am I doing with all this extra money now? I had somebody ask me just this last week, they said, so what would you do, Ben? If you won $1 million, what would you do with it? And I said, that's easy. I said, immediately I would tithe and then I would give an offering. That would be first off. And I said, now you take $1 million, you put $100,000 into the church minimum. I said, then I would want to turn around and I would want to give an offering. And I said, the offering I might give to Victory Churches, I might do it to an orphanage, I'm not sure where I'd put the offering. But I said, I do know that by the time I had tithed, by the time I had given an offering, paid off the mortgage and paid off any other debts we would have, I says, I could guarantee at that point that I would still have $750,000 left plus. I says, then I would go on a trip, and then I would invest the rest. Simple. Well, I don't have to wonder about that. See, so many people, when they get the money, we got an extra $100. What are we going to do with it? Let's see. We could blow it here. We could blow it there. We could do this. We can develop the correct habits. That's the preparation time. That's your time to be ready so that when the opportunity comes, you already know what's going to happen. See, money, I've mentioned to this person too. I says, money is just an amplifier. A lot of people think money is all powerful. All money will do is amplify what's already in your heart. If you're a drug addict, now you have $1 million, guess what? You're going to kill yourself with drugs. If you're an alcoholic, you get $1 million, you're going to drink yourself to death. If you're an adulterer, all you're going to do now is have your affairs at the Holiday Inn instead of the Super 8. Because that's what's in your heart. And all money will do is amplify what is already there. So developing the correct habits will ensure that the preparation part is done when the opportunity comes. Now, being ready is the key part of what it takes to receiving promotion from God and going to the next level in your life. See, last week you probably thought I was just meddling. This week I'm going to meddle a little bit more. You're going to find out last week wasn't meddling. Last week was just setting up the stage for this week. When you're ready, it's the key of what it's going to take to receive promotion from God.